Imagine you've spent more than 10 years of your life studying etiquette. Not just please and thank you, but real etiquette. The way someone carries themselves in a room. The way they show respect without saying a single word. The way they make others feel seen, valued, and honored simply through their presence. You've trained hundreds of people. You've studied body language, social cues, and the unwritten codes of conduct across different cultures. You've sat in front of a mirror and practiced the right way to bow, how to maintain eye contact, how to stand in a way that's neither too stiff nor too casual. You thought you'd seen everything. And then you watch a clip from a Korean YouTube show. A K-pop idol in his mid-20s is sitting with one of the most respected MCs in all of South Korea. And in one small moment, a moment that lasts only a few seconds, one that most viewers probably didn't even notice, you stop. You rewind. And you think, I've been teaching etiquette for over a decade, and even I struggle to do this as naturally as he just did. That person is ParkJimin. And today we're going to talk about why that moment keeps coming back, why people keep sharing it, keep commenting on it, keep asking, who is this person really? And why the small things he does speak far louder than any award, chart record, or media praise ever could. But before we go deeper, if you're new to this channel and you love content about BTS, about Jimin, and about moments that make you think a little deeper, make sure you subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Because this kind of content is what we do here. Before we talk about Jimin and the moment at the heart of this video, we need to talk about Yoo Jae-suk. Because if you don't know who Yoo Jae-suk is, you won't fully understand just how significant this moment really is. Yoo Jae-suk is not just a regular MC. In Korea, he goes by many nicknames, Eurus, Willis, Grasshopper. But the one that has stuck the longest, the one that most accurately reflects who he is to the Korean public, is this: Nation's MC. Not one of the best MCs. Nation's MC, singular. One of a kind. This isn't a title given by the media or by the entertainment industry. This title was born organically from the Korean public over more than 2 decades. He is a symbol, not just because he's popular, but because he has become part of the fabric of everyday Korean life. The shows he's hosted have become collective memories. The laughter he's created has woven itself into Korean cultural identity. And the rarest thing, in an industry famous for being cutthroat, competitive, and full of stories about hidden rivalries and outsized egos, Yoo Jae-suk is known as someone who is genuinely good. Not camera good, but consistently, sincerely, always good to everyone around him, from fellow stars to the crew working behind the scenes. He is the kind of senior who is respected not because of his title or his fame, but because of his character. And in Korea, where social hierarchy and respect for elders are deeply held values, showing genuine respect to someone like Yoo Jae-suk is a direct reflection of how a person was raised, how they view human relationships, and who they truly are when no one is watching. On April 11th, 2023, Jimin and Suga appeared as guests on Pingigo, a casual YouTube show on the Dundun channel created by Yoo Jae-suk and Jo Seho. Pingigo isn't a big variety show. No flashy set, no major games, no big challenges, just conversation, Yoo Jae-suk inviting people he wants to meet to sit down and talk casually about their everyday lives. And it's precisely because there was no agenda, because there was nothing to promote and nothing to perform, that the moments that came out of this episode felt so raw and so honest. What you see is who they actually are. Now let's get into the core of this video, the moment that caused an etiquette educator on social media to pause their video, rewind it, and write a long comment that fans have been sharing ever since. In that episode of Pingigo, there's a scene that looks very simple on the surface. Yoo Jae-suk hadn't sat down yet. And Jimin, even though he could have sat down, even though no one asked him to stand, even though there was technically no formal protocol requiring him to do anything, remained standing, upright, calm, while looking at his senior with full attention and listening to every word being said. Not with the stiff posture of someone standing at attention. Not in a way that felt forced or performative, but in a light, natural, almost effortless way, like someone who isn't even aware they're doing something special, because to them, it isn't special at all. It's simply the natural way to behave when a senior hasn't sat down yet. Sometime after the episode aired, a comment appeared on social media and began spreading through the ARMY community. It was written by someone who claimed to have been teaching etiquette and character education for more than 10 years. I won't claim a specific identity for this person because there's no official verification of who they are. But what they wrote, word for word, is worth sitting with. They wrote, I myself have been teaching etiquette and character education for over 10 years, and even I find it difficult to do this. I really want to ask him about it and learn from him. They also wrote about the way Jimin stood. Because Mr. You hadn't sat down yet, Jimin remained upright, almost floating, while looking at him and listening with complete attention. This is not ordinary politeness. This is not a deliberate action. This is something completely embedded, something that comes out naturally. And then they added, Jimin demonstrates a level of attentiveness and etiquette that most people never even think about, let alone do. What Jimin is showing here is a real example of how high his level of manners and respect truly is. Jimin is truly becoming the standard of elegance and respect. Now, why does this matter? Why is a comment from an etiquette educator on social media, whose identity isn't even fully verified, worth dedicating a whole video to? Because this person isn't speaking as a fan who got carried away by emotion. They're speaking as someone whose job is to observe and evaluate the manners of other people. Someone who has trained hundreds of individuals and observed thousands of social interactions. And when someone with that background watches a Jimin clip and says, I want to learn from him, that isn't just a compliment. That is a professional acknowledgement from an entirely different vantage point than your average fan. There's a question that might be forming in your mind right now. Isn't this a bit much? Just because someone stood and waited for their senior to sit down, does that really deserve all this attention? And the answer isn't a simple yes or no. But there's something we need to understand about how genuine etiquette actually works. In the world of etiquette and character education, there is a fundamental difference between two kinds of politeness. First, there is learned politeness, when someone knows the rules, has memorized the protocols, and carries them out because they know it's expected of them in a given situation. This isn't a bad thing. It's the starting point. It's how everyone begins to build good manners. But there's a second level, and this is far rarer. Embedded politeness, when someone doesn't need to think at all, because respect has already become part of the way they move and breathe in this world. This isn't something you can train in a few months. It grows over years, from how you were raised, from the values instilled in you, from your life experiences, and from the small choices you make every single day for years on end. The difference is always visible to someone who knows how to look for it. Learned politeness feels slightly different, slightly calculated, slightly delayed, slightly like someone who has to remember what the next step is before they do it. There's a small moment where you can see the person thinking, oh, I should do this now. Embedded politeness feels completely different. It feels light, natural, effortless. Like breathing, you don't think about how to breathe, you just breathe. And it's precisely because of that effortlessness, precisely because there's no visible effort, that it feels so much deeper and so much more real. What that etiquette educator saw in Jimin was the second category. Not someone following a protocol, not someone who remembered they should stand, but someone whose respect for others has already become part of the way they exist in the world, something that can't be separated from who they are. And this isn't the first time we've seen this quality from Jimin. If you've been following him for any length of time, you'll start to notice that moments like these aren't rare accidents. They are a consistent pattern. But we don't only have the words of an etiquette educator. There's one more layer we need to talk about, and this one might carry even more weight. Yoo Jae-suk himself, Korea's nation's MC, someone who in over 2 decades of his career has met nearly every major celebrity the Korean entertainment industry has ever produced, openly and unprompted shared how he felt about Jimin during that Pinkigo episode. He said in his own words, I like Jimin so much. What should I do? I can't hide it. Think about that for a moment. Yoo Jae-suk, a man who has spent more than 20 years sitting across from the most famous people in Korea. Someone who is not easily impressed, not because he's arrogant, but because he has genuinely seen everything. Someone who has interviewed presidents, sports legends, internationally award-winning actresses, and global music superstars. And he sits across from Jimin and says out loud, I can't hide it. I like Jimin so much. That's not a comment made to entertain the audience. It's not the polite small talk of a host to his guest. Yoo Jae-suk is known as someone who is honest, someone who doesn't say things he doesn't mean just because of someone's fame. This is a genuine expression from someone who is genuinely moved, and who is confident enough to say it out loud on camera. And the question is, why? Why would you, Jae-suk, who has met all of those people, who has been friends and colleagues with so many major stars, be specifically moved by Jimin? Not because Jimin is the world's biggest superstar. Yoo Jae-suk has met plenty of superstars. Not because Jimin is the best performer he's ever seen. But because there is something in the way Jimin is present in a room, the way he listens without rushing, the way he shows respect without making others uncomfortable, the way he makes everyone around him feel seen and valued, that made Yoo Jae-suk want to keep being near him. And this is the true definition of what we call genuine charisma. Not a stage performance, not fame, not follower counts, but the ability to make others feel that their presence matters and has value, simply through the way you are present with them. That is an extraordinarily rare gift. And Jimin has it. There is a concept in Korean culture that is deeply relevant here, and I want to spend a few minutes talking about it because I think it will help us understand why Jimin is able to consistently demonstrate this quality. The concept is called nunchi. There's no perfect translation into English, but roughly, nunchi is the ability to read the room, to understand the atmosphere, the feelings of others, and the social dynamics of a situation, and then respond in the most appropriate way, without needing to be told. Someone with high nunchi knows when to speak, and when to stay silent. They can tell when someone is uncomfortable, even if that person hasn't said anything. They know when to step forward, and when to give space. And most importantly, they know how to adjust their presence to the needs of the people around them, without ever appearing to try hard. Nunchi is not something you learn from a book. Nunchi grows from sensitivity, from genuine empathy, and from years of actually paying attention to other people, not performing attention, but truly giving it. Jimin, based on every moment we've witnessed over the years, is someone with extraordinarily high nunchi. The moment at Pingigo is a direct manifestation of nunchi that has become deeply embedded in who he is, the ability to sense that his senior hadn't sat down yet, and to respond in the most respectful way possible, without anyone directing him, without anyone reminding him, without needing to think twice. And that is what left the etiquette educator stunned. Not the physical gesture, not the protocol, but the source of it, the genuine awareness, the natural response, and the respect that came not from calculation but from character. Now I want to invite you to look at the bigger picture, because the Pingigo moment isn't a single isolated data point. It is part of a pattern that has been unfolding for a long time, and that keeps repeating itself across different contexts and different situations. During the Arirang 2026 World Tour, when Jimin and BTS visited the National Palace of Mexico, many people took note of how Jimin carried himself near President Claudia Sheinbaum. Not because he did something dramatic or attention-grabbing, but because of the way he was present, the way he adjusted his pace, the way he listened, the way he showed genuine respect to a head of state he was meeting for the first time, in a country that wasn't his own, in a situation that was undoubtedly filled with pressure and expectation. There are also the stories from people who work behind the scenes, production crews, photographers, florists, staff from various projects, who consistently say the same thing about Jimin. That he never behaved like a big star who didn't care about the people around him. That he always made sure the people near him felt valued and acknowledged. That his thank yous felt sincere, not like they were just part of some obligatory protocol. And then there are the moments witnessed by millions of fans, at concerts, in interviews, in interactions with other people. The moment when Jimin received a cowboy hat from a fan in Tampa and immediately put it on with genuine joy and warmth. The way he consistently ensures that every person around him feels like their presence is seen and their existence matters. All of these dots connect into one clear image. This is not a series of coincidences. This is not someone performing their best self for the camera. This is character, consistent character, visible across different situations, in front of different people, year after year. And when you see consistency like that, when the pattern is too clear and too long to dismiss, you can't call it coincidence anymore. You can only call it one thing: who they actually are. I want to close this section of the video with something a little different from what you might expect. The Pingigo moment, the etiquette educator's comment, Yoo Jae-suk's reaction. All of this is of course about admiring Jimin. And there is genuinely a lot here that deserves to be admired. But I want us to take home something more than just admiration. This moment is a reminder of how rare and how valuable genuine respect truly is in this world. We live in an era where everyone knows how to look polite on camera, where branding and image management have become massive industries, where almost everyone, artists, politicians, corporate executives, has a team making sure they look good in public. And it's precisely because of that context that when we see something genuinely real, respect that isn't manufactured, attention that isn't engineered, kindness that isn't part of a strategy, we feel it immediately, inside ourselves, before we can even articulate it. The etiquette educator felt it, Jae-suk felt it, and millions of armies around the world, most of whom have never and likely will never meet Jimin in person, felt it through a screen. That is not something that can be faked. It comes from within. And maybe that is the most important lesson we can take from a small moment that happened on a Korean YouTube show in April 2023. That genuine character always shows. No matter how big the world gets, no matter how noisy social media becomes, no matter how much manufactured content floods every platform, genuine character always finds its way through. There's one more thing I want to mention before we get to the close, and this is about the overall context of the Pingigo episode itself. Jimin didn't come to Pingigo alone. He came with Suga, and if you've been following BTS for a while, you know that Jimin and Suga, or Yoonmin, as fans often call them, have a uniquely special dynamic. They are very different from each other in many ways. Suga tends to be more direct, more reserved, with a communication style that's straightforward and often feels like he's delivering a short lecture about life. Jimin is warmer, more expressive, with an almost effortless ability to make the people around him feel comfortable almost instantly. But it's precisely that difference that makes their chemistry so compelling to watch. In the Pingigo episode, you see both of them in their most relaxed and most unscripted form. Suga talking about his relationship with Jo Seho, about his long-held desire to finally meet Jae-suk in person, about the everyday life that goes on outside the spotlight. And Jimin is there alongside him, listening, responding, adding warmth to the conversation in a way that feels completely natural. And in the middle of all of that, there's that small moment, the standing moment, the moment that an etiquette educator called something that cannot be learned in a short time. The moment that looks so small but says so much. There's something interesting about the way the world responds to Jimin, and it's something we don't always consciously articulate, but that keeps appearing in different forms. When major media outlets began covering BTS and Jimin during the Arirang 2026 tour, one thing that kept surfacing wasn't just about his talent, it was about how he behaves. Billboard wrote about the Tampa performance not only from a musical standpoint, but from the perspective of how Jimin connected with the audience, how every movement, every interaction, felt personal and sincere even when he was on stage in front of tens of thousands of people. Rolling Stone featured Jimin across 8 covers in a special edition. And in the interviews that accompany that coverage, one theme kept emerging: the way Jimin views his relationships with others, including his fans, his team members, and the people in the industry who have worked alongside him. It is not a coincidence that people, from an etiquette educator on social media to Korea's nation's MC to music critics at major Western outlets, consistently reach for the same words when they talk about Jimin: genuine, real, unforced, natural, because consistent character cannot be hidden in the long run. And consistent character will always eventually be seen by everyone, from those who have loved him for years, to those who are only now beginning to pay attention. And perhaps that is ParkJimin's greatest legacy, the one that cannot be measured in chart numbers or streaming figures. That he continues to be a reminder that genuine kindness, real respect, and authentic attention to others is something that always shows. That in a world increasingly filled with carefully constructed images and engineered personas, there are still people who bring their truest selves into every room they walk into. And Jimin is one of those people. We live in an era where everything is measured at scale. Streaming numbers, concert attendance, award counts, and all of those numbers matter. They reflect the reach and impact a person has in their industry and in global popular culture. But there are things that can't be measured in numbers. Things that will never show up in a Spotify report or on a Billboard chart. And paradoxically, those are often the things that last the longest. Those are the things that make people still talk about a particular moment years after it happened. The Jimin moment at Pingigo wasn't engineered to go viral. It wasn't planned by a management team. It wasn't part of any marketing campaign. It was simply a real moment, a person being genuinely present with someone they respected. And that is precisely why it keeps living. Precisely why people keep talking about it. Precisely why an etiquette educator who had spent over a decade of their life studying manners felt compelled to write down what they felt when they watched that clip. When we watch Jimin, whether on stage, in a variety show, or in unplanned candid moments, we always see the same person. A person who is fully present. A person who listens with sincerity. A person who makes others feel like their existence matters. And maybe at the end of the day, that is what we all quietly long for in this world. To feel truly seen and valued by the person in front of us. Jimin gives that feeling to the people around him. Naturally, without trying, because that is simply who he is. See you in the next video. Annyeong. Alright everyone, we've covered a lot of ground today. From a simple moment at Pingigo in April 2023, to the comment of a stunned etiquette educator, to Yoo Jae-suk's honest reaction, to the concept of nunchi, to the broader pattern of character that Jimin has consistently shown for years. And every single path leads to the same conclusion: ParkJimin is something rare. Not just as an artist, not just as a performer, but as a human being. His respect isn't an act. His attention to others isn't a strategy. The warmth felt by the etiquette educator, by Yoo Jae-suk, by the hundreds of people who have interacted with him directly, by the millions of fans who only know him through a screen. That is something that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, and cannot be taught in a short amount of time. It comes from within, and that is why we keep talking about it. Now I want to hear from you. Which Jimin moment first made you think, this person is not just a regular artist? Which moment made you truly see who ParkJimin really is as a human being? Write it in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I genuinely want to know your story. And if this video gave you a new perspective, if it made you see Jimin, or even the meaning of genuine respect, from a different angle, please share this video. To fellow armies, to friends who might not know Jimin well yet, to anyone you think needs to see this. Because content like this deserves to reach more people. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next video. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember one thing we learned today: genuine character always shows. Always. Annyeong.